is Ian Ellery. I am a freelance contributor to the radio, but also I write for a watch blog called TheWatchLounge out of Australia. Yes, I mean, it's very busy. I mean, there are 18 brands at SIHH, and we have 55 brands here at GTE, so there's a lot to get through. There's a lot of good items this year. Some interesting themes that keep popping up, especially at the major brands. But it's been quite a good year, and I think that the general tone appears to be much more positive this year than we had last year. And there certainly are more than a few new watches that are actually coming out with some interesting developments as well. I think there are two main trends that we can see this year, which are, one, we have a continuation of the trend from last year to ultra-thin. There are a number of very interesting ultra-thin movements that are coming onto the market from Piaget and many of the others at SIHH. But also I think the other one is, and much more interesting for me, is much more of a retro look. We've had the Capeland from Baume & Mercier, which is really a true development of a 1950s face, even down to the slightly off-white colour, which is extremely interesting, and at a good price point too. Many of the historical models that one tends to get from people like Vacheron Constantin, things like that, tend to be rather expensive. But if you're looking for a retro look, that appears to be the trend, certainly probably for the next couple of years. Ralph Lauren have picked up on with a very interesting square face, but very small, only about 23 millimeter square, which is really very small, especially for a man's watch today. I think that really sort of the hit of the show has definitely been HD3 with their slide. That, of course, in itself is quite an interesting story because of the situation that they found themselves in. Meant that they had to come up with a real product as quickly as possible. But I think what they've come up with is a fantastic delivery. I think the other interesting one is going to be, we'll have to see what Cyrus is going to do with their range of products. That certainly looks very interesting. But I think for me, from a social media point of view, I think the most impressive thing has been the marketing campaign by Ladois. Here we've had, it's not easy to make a big noise when you don't have a huge budget, and I think that they've managed to get the timing right, the tone of the adverts that they've been placing stuff on Facebook. There's been quite an interesting sort of Twitter feed that's been going on for it as well. And I think that if there were some more brands who could generate that level of interest by using social media, then I think some of the big brands would find it very, very difficult to ignore some of the techniques that they've been using. And I think that's probably one of the other things. It's the connection to a wider and wider audience. One of the challenges that everybody faces, especially in the independent market, is to address as big a market as possible, but also in as cost-effective and also in an as engaging way as possible. And I think that that's where some of the things that Marvin has been doing in that space are really sort of spot on. It's identifying not only the client they're trying to address to, but then changing the way in which you actually get to those people and how you interact with them. And that really sort of sparks the interest in those particular products. And that really does appear to be the way to go, especially in, one doesn't want to say necessarily the value part of the market, but certainly an added part of the market, where you want to get people who want to move up a little bit more, buy something a little bit more adventurous, something with a bit of edge to it. And I think that that's the sort of thing that Marvin is managing to really exploit really quite well and really make an impact. I think they're beginning to get the idea, but whether or not they have the individuals in the places, I think is still unknown. It can be very difficult to try and get even an email back from some of these people. So I think that getting them to interact via Facebook, even at its simplest, is going to be difficult for some of these guys. But also, one has to ask whether or not that's truly a good value position for somebody like Vacheron Constantin. It appears to be working very well for Baume & Mercier. They have some decent products now, and they have a good 150,000 people on their Facebook page, so that they're able to disseminate information. But it really is making targeted advertising much more cost effective, and being able to get at the people much more easily. I think that certainly the direction that Marvin is taking looks like it's going to be absolutely spot on. I'm sure that some of the models are going to be really a great success, and certainly a lot of interest seems to be generated this week.